Hey there folks, I am the Mighty Plantain. Thanks for checking out this video. We're looking at Saranac's 12 Beers of Winter. I think this makes like 3 or 4 winter variety packs this year, so I've been hitting them pretty heavy, but there's always good beers in them. So what we're looking at here, we've got their Oatmeal Stout, Big Moose Winter Ale, Clouded Dream IPA, and Season's Best, which happens to be a lager. So, the Oatmeal Stout and Clouded Dream are both new. Big Moose, of course, has been there. I think they've been putting out that winter ale for a while. And Season's Best, it says here it's a throwback. I don't know how long ago was the last time they put it out, but I seem to remember having it at one point in time. So the lineup I've chosen here, we're going to start with the Season's Best Lager, and go with the Big Moose Winter Ale after that, Oatmeal Stout, and then the Clouded Dream IPA. A lot of people will line beers up from light to dark. That's sometimes a mistake. When you've got a stout and an IPA, unless it's a really hoppy stout, you always want to put those IPAs at the end and arrange those in order of the higher IBUs last. Most folks watching this know that already because you're experienced beer drinkers. But the reason for that being that no matter how heavy or dark your stouts, your porters, your darker beers are, the bitterness, the hoppy bitterness of an IPA can overshadow those flavors. So even with cleansing with water in between beers, which I do whenever I taste multiple beers in one evening, you still want to put those IPAs last because a significantly high IBU IPA can just wreck your palate and you'll miss out on the subtleties of some of the other beers. Easy to say when you're sitting at home with a variety pack, not so easy at a beer fest when you're trying to get as many samples in as possible. And I say this because I'm just coming off of Extreme Beer Fest in Boston last week, which was fucking awesome as always. Check out the video, I posted it last week. It's always a good time. Of course, I go with a lot of good friends and some new friends that are a great deal of fun as well. Anyway, if you're going to hit a beer fest, always do it with a good group of friends. Makes it way more fun. I'm just running off at the mouth right now, so I'm going to get into the beer. We'll get the Sam Adams glass here. Always use that just because you can get the 4-pack of different varieties of beer glasses, and each one's made for different styles. But the Sam Adams Perfect Pint Glass for me usually does a pretty good job of enhancing the flavors of any style of beer, even though it was made specifically for Boston Lager by Sam Adams. It still brings out the flavors for me because it's designed to do that for a wide variety of beers as far as I'm concerned, versus getting an IPA glass, a snifter for, I think it's a snifter for stouts. I don't know. I keep things very simple and I try to use layman's terms on this channel. I don't go into a lot of detail, don't do a lot of research because I just want to present the beers as I see them without getting into too much intellectual discussion about them. So, let's grab the Season's Best Winter Lager. It's got a nice copperish color. Maybe darker than copper, but no, I'm going to go with copper. It's got a nice copper hue to it. It's quite effervescent. There's a lot of bubbles coming up from that nucleation point on the bottom of the glass. Lots of little tiny bubbles. It's actually somewhat transfixing me here. But that is a good-looking beer. I like it. Oh, look at all them little bubbles. Alright. Decent head. And it is maintaining. I'm getting like a bit of a fresh evergreen aroma off of it. Not necessarily like pine or spruce or anything like that, but just one of those woodsy evergreen aromas like walking through the woods on a winter day. It's mild, but I am getting a bit of crispness from it too. It's good. Very nice. It's got a nice medium heavy mouthfeel to it, so it's got some serious body for a lager. And that hint of evergreen is kind of coming through in the finish. In the middle there, maybe a little bit of sweetness. Just a hint of sweetness. It's a very easy drinking beer for something with that much body. It's a nice cold winter's day beer. Honestly, I could see this working well in the fall, and maybe even in some of the colder days of spring as well. Yeah, other than that hint of evergreen in the finish, the deceptively heavy mouthfeel based on the color of the beer, I'm getting some hints of some different winter spices. Maybe some nutmeg and cinnamon. But nothing really jumping out at me. Nothing really hugely flavorful. Oh, they add malt right to the brew kettle. Okay, so that explains some of the body to it. Yeah, they're just a roasty, toasty, seasonal favorite. So, it's a very solid beer. Like I said, nothing really huge jumping out at me. I could see this being more than just a winter beer, but it is definitely a great winter beer. I'm going to hit this with a 3.5 out of 5. And I'll try to say this only once on this video. On a scale of 1 to 5, a 2.5 is average. So this is a nice, solid, above average beer. But again, nothing really hugely standing out other than that deceptively heavy mouthfeel. And it's got a nice, comforting, warming feeling as it's settling in. So I'm going to finish this one up, and we're going to move on to the Big Moose. Okay, next up is Big Moose Winter Ale. I'm going to go ahead and read the label on this one ahead of time. I usually try... Oh, doesn't say anything. I usually try to avoid reading the label because I want to give you my taste impressions versus what I read off the label, because I think sometimes that colors it. But actually, there's more of a description of each of these on the box. If I really wanted to get some info, I should read that instead. But, like I said, I like to give you my impression of the beer, not what the label says, because I don't want to have any preconceived notions of what it's going to taste like. That being said, some beers, I can't resist reading the label ahead of time, so I will do that sometimes. Boy, I did have a couple of beers before starting this video, and I think I'm just running off at the mouth continuously tonight. I'll try to put a curb on that, but no promises. This one's a little more cloudy. Still a lot of little tiny bubbles coming up, but not as many as the last beer, so not as effervescent. But it is a nice cloudy, orangish yellow color. Pretty interesting. I wonder if the cloudiness is indicative of hop oils in there. It doesn't say much about being a hoppy beer, but, you know, anything can be hoppy these days. Not really getting much in the aroma. Yeah, not much at all. It is slightly hoppy. It's got a medium light mouthfeel. Still pretty crisp. Refreshing. I don't know, I'm definitely getting some impressions, some winter, or, you know, winter spices, but I can't put my finger on anything specific. There's an overall hoppy bitterness to it, but again, I'm not getting any specific esters. I'm not getting like piney, citrusy, or maybe a hint of earthiness to it, which is unusual for me. I'm usually keyed towards pine and citrus, but I'm not getting a real pine, citrus, or floral. Maybe a hint of earthiness, but just an overall hoppy bitterness in the finish. Not an overwhelming one, just a slight hoppiness to it. Again, it's a really solid winter beer with hints of winter spices, bit of an overall hoppy bitterness, hints of earthiness, but nothing really jumping out again. I'm going to hit this one with a 3.5 out of 5 as well. It's another really solid beer, just nothing too crazy or outlandish about it. Definitely above average. Well, I'm going to finish this one up, and we're going to check out the brand new Oatmeal Stout in this pack. Okay, next up is the Oatmeal Stout. I always like a good oatmeal stout. I mean, don't get me wrong, stouts in general are good, but oatmeal stouts tend to have a nice heavy body to them. Just nice and thick, especially on a cold winter night. Just a lot of comfort and body in these beers. That poured out nice, like a stout should. There's a little more light coming through that than I'd like from a stout. Doesn't seem to be too effervescent, but it is pretty dark. It is dark, but it is not black. That is a brown stout. Slightly reddish tinge to it. I like my stouts when I hold them up to the light. They have no light coming through them. But that's not to say that this is a bad sign, because there are plenty of lighter colored stouts that turn out to be fantastic. And Saranac usually offers some pretty solid beers, so, pardon. There's a bit of an oaty, grainy aroma to it. Maybe a slight hint of toastiness. And an even slighter hint of sweetness. It's actually got a medium heavy mouthfeel. It's just slightly heavier than that other beer in the pack that had the medium heavy mouthfeel, but it's not quite into the heavy category. So it's got a lighter mouthfeel than I would have expected from an oatmeal stout, but it's still pretty solid. But as it goes down, pardon. It's got some really nice roasty notes. Hint of coffee, hint of chocolate. Oh, that is nice. Catching a chill here. I've been too long sitting in this chilly apartment. I'm sure you've been hearing the heater running the whole time in the background on this video. It was a fairly warm day, all things considered, today, but once the sun went down, the temperature started dropping pretty quick. There's no bearing on this beer review. I don't know why I keep babbling, but I got some hiccups trying to boil their way to the surface here. I'm trying to tamp those down. I haven't had that many beers. I shouldn't be getting hiccups, but like I said, some really solid roasty notes. Maybe a hint of woodiness to it, but overall, like coffee and chocolate coming through. It's a really solid stout with some nice flavors. I'm getting a hint of that sweetness in the finish. Maybe some maple to it. There's definitely a hint of sweetness in the finish. It's a pretty nice complex stout. But nothing new or different. Nothing I haven't had in a different stout before. But this is a really nice combo, and it's a great winter beer. I'm gonna push this one up to a 4 out of 5. I'm really liking it. That's a nice solid oatmeal stout. A good winter beer, and it's got some complex flavors, especially coming through in the finish. And the more of it I drink, the more of them are coming to the forefront. I like that. This is probably going to disappear faster than the other two beers, and that means faster than it should, but it's delicious. So once I am done with it, we're going to move on to the fourth and final. It's going to be that new IPA, the Clouded Dream. I wanted to say something about a storm. I think their last seasonal pack, pardon, had like Tropical Storm IPA. I might be thinking of another brewery, but Clouded Dream IPA is next. Alright, so we are up to the fourth and final beer. This is Clouded Dream IPA. Now, for some reason, maybe they did this on the other bottles, but I didn't notice it before. They've got a little 5.5% ABV big bubble here. I don't know. Maybe this one's higher than the others, so they just had to point that out. But I didn't notice the ABV being listed quite so prominently on the other three. Anyway. Always happy to try a new IPA. I am a hop head, as you regular viewers knew. And I'm pretty sure Saranac was the one who put out the Tropical Storm IPA in their spring or summer pack, which was really different and really awesome. I hope I'm thinking about Saranac now, because that particular IPA was pretty damn good. And that could have been from a different brewery, I'm not sure. This one is much more hazy than any other beer in this pack. Very, very, very cloudy. It has a dark yellow color with a slightly, I don't know, maybe orangish or pinkish tinge. I think the pink I'm seeing is from the lighting from certain sources, so I'm going to say an orangish tinge to it. Definitely an interesting looking beer. Not a lot of bubbles coming up from the nucleation point, so it's not all that effervescent, but very, very cloudy. Smells like grapefruit juice. Yeah. At the first sniff, I got a big nose full of like grapefruit citrusy notes. And then I got some floral notes, and now this third sniff I'm getting like some earthy notes. Huh. Now I'm getting more citrus and earthy, like a dirty grapefruit. Seriously, think about it, taking a half of a grapefruit and just smearing it in mud and getting a good whiff of that. Not that dirty or earthy is a bad thing. Personally, I'm impressed anytime I get floral or earthy notes from an IPA, because like I said before, I'm more keyed towards citrus and pine, so. But yeah, I'm definitely getting citrusy and earthy notes in the aroma, which is kind of cool. But can't obsess about that. Eventually, I gotta taste this, right? Nice medium mouthfeel. Maybe a little bit of oiliness to it, and a slight bit of grittiness. Not unpleasantly, but though. Just a bit of oiliness and grittiness. But as it starts out, I'm getting that nice combination of citrusy and earthy notes, and then it fades to a nice dankness in the finish, and then just an overall hoppy bitterness. So citrusy and earthy combined together, but a dankness there in the middle, and then it finishes with an overall hoppy bitterness. It's a very pleasant IPA. Oh, a little different for me. Getting the earthiness, like I said. Those dank notes, that's something I'm picking up on more and more with different hop varieties being introduced to different IPAs and some of the newer ones out there. Pardon. The belch isn't bad. Just an overall hoppy bitterness. Hints of citrus in the finish of the belch. Not that you wanted to know what the belch tasted like. And I'm trying to tamp down these hiccups right now because the pseudo hiccups I was getting with that second beer developed into full-on hiccups here with the fourth one. They're really trying to break through, but I'm just doing my best to prevent that. And I think I've succeeded here. This one's at least a 4 out of 5. And I'm on the cusp here. You know, I think I'm going to hit this with a 4.5 out of 5. The fact that I'm getting hop esters that I don't normally get, and that it begins as being an overall very good, very pleasant, very well-rounded and put together IPA gives it some points. But the fact that I'm getting those earthy notes and the dank notes, I don't normally key in on those. I think it's different enough that I'm willing to hit it with a 4.5. I'm just not wowed enough to hit it up to the full perfect 5 out of 5 category, but 4.5 seems fair to me for that particular beer. So there we go. 4 beers in this pack. 4 winners, definitely. You know, with the Oatmeal Stout and the IPA, why can't I remember? I keep going back to that Tropical Storm IPA, but I know this one is Clouded Dream. Clouded Dream IPA. I don't know why that's not registering in my memory. I mean, yeah, I'm certainly pleasantly buzzed, but I'm not drunk to the point where I shouldn't be able to remember Clouded Dream IPA. Anyway, rambling again. 2 3.5s, 1 4, and 1 4.5 out of 5. So definitely a very solid variety pack from Saranac this year. Thanks, guys. Really appreciate it. Looking forward to see what you have to do in the spring. But, as always, that's just my opinion on these beers. Make sure to hit me up in the comments and the email link down below. I'd like to hear what you have to say about these beers. Whether you agree or disagree, either way, let's hear it. Beer taste is always subjective. I'd like to know what you think about them. While you're down there, make sure to like and share this video. And don't forget to subscribe to the channel. I'm going to keep those subscriber numbers growing. That's what's eventually going to allow me to put ads on this again and start maybe making a few pennies here and there. I ain't going to get rich off of this, but, you know, making enough in a year to get 1 free bottle of booze will be nice. Yeah. I'm not going to start whining about that, sorry. So, in short, thanks for watching. Like, share, and subscribe. Share your opinions, please. Till next time, thanks for tuning in. Cheers, folks.